Members of the panel on Home Affairs, Culture and Sports, good afternoon. We have a quorum, and it's also the appointed time. Agenda item 1. Information papers issued since last meeting. Please note that there's a letter dated the 23rd of January 2026 from Mr. Kenneth FOK on matters relating to supply of and demand for, as well as development and enhancement of cultural and sports facilities. Agenda item 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. There are 2 papers. 1, list of outstanding items for discussion. It lists out the items to be discussed from the present to December this year. And the other paper is list of follow-up actions. Deputy Chair and I came up with this list with 2 secretaries during our meetings on the 2nd and the 3rd of February. We tried our best to incorporate the ideas made by members into this list. Please note that the next regular meeting will be held on the 30th of March. It's a Monday. We'll have the meeting from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. and the administration proposes that we discuss the following 2 items. 1, final report on Hong Kong's hosting of the 15th National Games, and 2, work progress of the Community Care Fund. Do members agree? All right. These are what we will discuss in the next meeting. Agenda item 3. Proposals to deepen the reform of building management and the conversion of a supernumerary directorate post into a permanent post in the Home Affairs Department. Secretary and her team is eager to listen to members' views, so they're already seated. So when the Secretary is walking us through the paper, I will allow members to press the request to speak button, and based on the number of members who ask to speak, I will decide how much time I'll give each member. And before I begin the meeting, I would like to declare that I have business dealings with the China Merchants Group. Secretary, please. We're here today to brief members on deepening the reform of building management, and we propose to make further amendments to the building management ordinance. We will seek members' views on this. The other proposal is that we propose converting one-time limited supernumerary post of Administrative Officer Staff Grade C, designated as Assistant Director of Home Affairs 5, which will expire on the 1st of April this year, into a permanent post in the Home Affairs Department. We'll hope to have members' support. This current term government attaches great importance to building management work, and we adopt a proactive approach, and we have been offering more support to assist owners in fulfilling their building management responsibilities. The HYAB in 2024 set up an internal high-level task force to deal with complicated building management issues. In the same year, we amended the Building Management Ordinance. The Building Management Amendment Ordinance 2024 took effect starting from July 2025. In 2025, in Yaoqing, Mong, Sham Shui Po, Kowloon City, as well as in Tsuen Wan, we implemented the Joint Property Management Pilot Scheme. Through a multi-pronged approach, we offered support to owners. We helped them set up property management companies, and also in January this year, the 18 district councils set up a working group on building management. And at the same time, we work with the PMSA, the Property Management Services Authority, to offer help to owners in proper building management. When we amended the Building Management Ordinance, we already undertook to follow up on different issues. In the 2025 policy address, the Chief Executive proposed that the government would conduct the next round of review on the Building Management Ordinance. With the public concern on this, we will deepen our reform, and we have come up with 5 major directions in the amendment to the ordinance. First, we will increase the threshold for voting in person, as well as for decisions on large-scale maintenance works and high-value procurement. Also, on proxy instrument, we require the public display within the building a list of units whose owners have signed proxy instruments. Also, on declarations of interest, we ask work consultants as well as contractors to sign declaration forms. And on suspending the meeting as well as canceling or postponing the meeting, the owners' corporations will have to follow certain procedures. There will also be powers of the authority. We will, through the working groups under the district councils, to collect feedback from the public so that we can finalize the amendment proposals as early as possible. The FC in June 2023 approved the creation of a supernumerary post in the HAD, and the post will expire on the 31st of March this year. The assistant director is responsible for the above work, and that includes coordinating the amendment exercise of the ordinance and to follow up on complex building management issues and to help implement the joint property management pilot scheme. The government has to deepen the reform in building management work to ensure that all the work could be taken forward continuously, and in order to ensure that there will be directorate steer, we propose to convert the assistant director post into a permanent one. We welcome any questions or feedback from members. If we gain the support from members in relation to our staffing proposal, we suggest that in March this year, we submit the proposal to the ESC for scrutiny. I will now invite Ms. Sandy Lee, Assistant Director of Home Affairs, to give a simple report to members. Yes, Ms. Sandy Lee, Assistant Director. Thank you. I will now talk about our proposed amendments to the Building Management Ordinance, CAP 344. First, on large-scale maintenance works and high-value procurement, our preliminary proposal is that we hope to enhance the participation of owners in making relevant decisions. On Type 2 high-value procurements, that is, the procurement value that exceeds or likely to exceed 20% of the average annual expenditure for the last 3 financial years, we will set a voting in-person threshold requiring 5% of the owners or 100 owners, whichever is the lesser, to attend and vote in person at the meetings. Regarding large-scale maintenance procurement, as mentioned by the government earlier, there will be an enhanced version of smart tender of the Urban Renewal Authority. Amendments will be made to the ordinance to the procurement-related provisions to allow exemptions for projects for which the URA conducts tenders on behalf of owners. As for other large-scale maintenance projects, it is proposed that a tiered system for quorum and voting in-person thresholds should be introduced. The overarching principle is that for projects with higher costs, the required quorum and voting in-person thresholds will be increased accordingly. As we seek to promote owners' participation in decisions regarding large-scale maintenance, we will take into account the feasibility of the proposal, and we hope that a briefing session will be convened 7 days prior to the owners' meeting for the large-scale maintenance procurement resolution, allowing owners to fully understand the details of the project. The other part of the amendment has to do with proxy instruments. Currently, there isn't a cap on the number of proxy instruments each person should hold. So one person may hold many proxy instruments. So our proposal is that for those where the number of units is more than 50, the number of proxy instruments signed by owners that a person may hold shall not exceed 2% of the total number of owners, or 20 instruments, whichever is the lesser. So for a building with the total number of units being 50, then each person should hold not more than one proxy instrument. We want to enhance transparency, so we will require the public to display within the building a list of units whose owners have signed proxy instruments, and make all instruments available for inspection by owners prior to and at the owners' meetings concerned. This is to enhance transparency. With regard to any owners' meeting concerning large-scale maintenance procurement resolutions, we propose to add a section to the relevant proxy instruments to allow owners to specify their voting instructions to their proxies. Now, turning to declaration of interests. Last July, when we amended the ordinance, we already dealt with the declaration of interests in relation to works consultant as well as contractors. Now we promote further amendment to this. We propose that OCs be required to provide the works consultants and the contractors with designated declaration forms to disclose if there is any conflict of interest between the two parties. Again, we want to enhance transparency, and this information should be made available to all owners. If contractors or works consultants refuse to declare interests, such refusal must be disclosed to the owners, and this will serve as an important piece of information for owners, so that owners have an idea of whether there are any relationships between the consultant and the contractor concerned. Also, in relation to meeting procedures, we want to improve the relevant procedures and spell them out in the provisions to make sure that meetings could be conducted smoothly. For example, if the chairman refuses to convene a meeting based on the agreement of 5% of the owners, there is currently no provision in the ordinance that specify how such situations should be dealt with, and usually owners have to seek remedies from the Lands Tribunal. So our proposal here is that where 10% of owners apply to the authority for the appointment of a specified person to convene the meeting on their behalf to discuss the relevant meetings, then an owner or a licensed property management company or a PMP could be appointed to hold the meeting. Usually, there must be some issues that need to be discussed if owners request to convene a meeting. Currently, there is no specified procedure in relation to how the situation should be dealt with. For example, if a chairman moves a motion to cancel the discussion of a certain item under this new proposal, then the chairman cannot alone decide to postpone or suspend the meeting without a reasonable cause. Also, we propose spelling out in the ordinance that owners will be able to decide together whether a meeting should be postponed or suspended instead of allowing the chairman alone to make that decision. In relation to the fifth direction of our amendment, we want to enhance the powers of the authority. If we see that there is a vacancy of the position of the management committee, owners again have to go to the Lands Tribunal to deal with the situation currently. So how can we offer help to owners? Our proposal is that upon application by 10% of the owners, the authority should have the power to appoint a specified person to assist in convening an owners' meeting, to dissolve the current management committee and re-elect a new management committee. Apart from the above 5 directions, we propose other amendments to the ordinance. For example, at times of emergencies, currently, the management committee has to give a notice 1 day in advance before a meeting is convened to handle any emergencies. Our proposal is that the notice period may be shortened to 3 hours or 12 hours prior to the meeting. Now, regarding the eligibility requirements, currently, those who are undischarged bankrupts or those within the previous 5 years have been convicted of an offense in Hong Kong or in any other place for which they have been sentenced to imprisonment, they could not be a member of the management committee. Our view is that to ensure fairness, the eligibility requirements shall be aligned with those for all management committee members instead of just to the secretary and the treasurer, for example, under the new proposal. We will confer more powers upon the authority, and at the same time we propose to set up an appeal board so that if owners object to the decision of the authority, they may lodge an appeal. That's all for my briefing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who hasn't yet pressed the button to request to speak? I will draw a line right here. We have quite a long lineup today. I, as the chairperson of the panel, will not ask questions. I'd like to give members as much time as possible. Each member 4 minutes, questions and answers included. I suggest members keep your questions to 2 minutes. But if you would only like to set out your views, then you can use the 4 minutes you have. Otherwise, we will affect the next agenda item. Let us go through the lineup. Mr. Andrew Lam, Chris Yip, Ms. Nixie Lam, Reverend Peter Kun, Mr. Jonathan Leung, Kenneth Lau, Vincent Chang, Adrian Ho, Deputy Chair Kenneth FOK, Ms. Michelle Tang, Ken Wong, Dr. Webster Ng, Mr. Albert Chuang, Mark Chong, Ms. Maggie Chen, Ms. Kwok Fu Yung, Ms. Christine Fong. All right, we'll start with Mr. Andrew Lam, 4 minutes each. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the government for taking one step forward. I totally understand how challenging this is. That's why, in amending the ordinance, we need to make it practical. We need to be able to implement the amendments. We need to strike a balance when it comes to the implementation of the amendments. It is not at all easy to call a meeting with a lot of participants. If we are still assuming a lot of property owners are willing to take part in the management of the building, I doubt this judgment. I'm not optimistic about it. Under these circumstances, if we need to empower more authority, I think this is necessary. What if the authority needs to be reconstituted, and what if it cannot do so? I believe the authority needs to be given more powers. Voting, regulation, monitoring. We cannot stick to the traditional approach. There are a lot of limitations. It is not at all easy to book a meeting venue right now. So how can technology help us? We have IamSmart, and soon enough we have the corporate version of the IamSmart platform. I believe we need interfacing. If the HYAB needs more resources, I support the HYAB in striving for more resources from the administration. While I'm not a member of this panel, I cannot express my support in creating a new position. But at the stage of the Finance Committee, I hope that you will have more resources so that you can handle the matter as well as you could. Secretary, I'm on the same page with Mr. Andrew Lam. All amendments need to be able to be implemented. All matters need to be considered pragmatic by the Management Committee. We don't want the procedures to drive property owners away. Of course, we need market forces, we need members of the council, we need the community to take part in the management of their own buildings. At the same time, we need to provide convenience to them. We also need to make our legislation clearer. There are amendments to the conduct of the meetings because we want to avoid bickering among members. Whenever there are arguments, they won't be able to handle issues in relation to their estate in a rational manner. Members support the use of technology. I hope that members will continue to provide support to us in the future. Mr. Chrisip, I support the creation of the position, and I'd like to speak on the cap on proxies. I'm afraid that the cap that is 50 or 20 will stifle will hinder the conduct of the meetings. Some property owners have trust in the Management Committee. That's why they give them the proxy instrument. If there is a cap, I'm worried that the meeting will not be convened successfully. The key is actually the veracity of the proxies, not the number. Are the proxy votes real? I believe when there's a CCTV, the situation will improve. Some people with ulterior motive will fear that they are caught on the CCTV. We need to work more on this front. We need to be able to track the vote, such as we need to have the ID numbers in order to track down the person. Regarding the dates of the meeting, at present the figure is 14 days. Is it possible to extend it to 21 days? "48 hours before the meeting, units need to have the full list of the units with proxy instruments. We need 5 days because we need to give sufficient time the owners' corporation and the related stakeholders to prepare the relevant information. I hope this will give suitable flexibility to the owners' corporation. We also need to think whether we need third parties to conduct verification. We need to verify the authenticity of the proxied votes. In Changkwano, there was an example in which we could confirm the accuracy of the proxy votes. These are real policies that could be implemented, and I hope that the administration will take into account my proposals. Secretary, thank you. We think alike. As I said earlier on, proxy votes do serve their own purposes, but the key is to provide convenience so that the meetings can still be convened with proxy votes. The key is to enable us to ensure the veracity of the proxy votes. We may consider engaging a third party to check the veracity of the proxy votes. Some housing estates are more large scale. They can engage a professional property management service company to do this on their behalf. We need to come up with policies that are applicable to different estates. One of the solutions is to do so through the property management service company. Property management companies can help in this regard, say the collection of proxy votes, the verification of the votes. But of course, if we don't even believe in the property service company, this is yet another issue. Thank you, member, for your views. Ms. Nick Z. Lam. Thank you, Chairman. I've been keeping up on the civil service, so I'd like to ask about the resource. After the conversion of the time-limited supernumerary positions to a permanent post 1, how can we ensure the implementation of the relevant building management policies? Sometimes HAD staff members sit in on management committee meetings or owners' corporation meetings. There are complicated situations in meetings. They speak foul language, they hurl items. So I'd like to know whether frontline officers of the HAD have sufficient training. You need to ensure the safety of frontline officers. It's no exaggeration because they do take part in a lot of these OC meetings. Some members don't have a good knowledge of CAP 344. In my own housing estate, there's an interesting discussion. They said, well, security guards should be given red packets of $15,000. I find it mind-boggling, and I need to remind them, well, you shouldn't do so. In some larger housing estates, there are practices in use. However, some are not familiar with the practice, so I'd like to know how we can help them. Secretary, thank you. In the HAD, we have 5 assistant directors. We recommend converting Assistant Director 5 from a time-limited supernumerary post to permanent post. There are a total of 4 branches under the HAD, and all 4 assistant directors are responsible for their own purview. If in the future we have an AD that is responsible for building management, then our colleagues will be more familiar with building management. They will be more professional in this regard. The PMSA was founded just recently. We need to enhance liaison between the property management sector and the PMSA on the use of resources by owners' corporations. Not only the HAD but also property management companies need to know the situation well. They use the resources in a responsible manner. After we convert the supernumerary post to a permanent one, then the assistant director will lead the colleagues under their behalf. There are liaison officers under the HIAB. Just now, member referred to some complicated cases. Legislation and procedures are involved. We need to update owners, corporation, and property owners on the relevant legislation. We need to improve the quality of property management companies.
我呢就
Reverend Peter Kuhn. Thank you, Chairman. I agree that the administration should convert the supernumerary post into a permanent one. But I think this is not enough. In the past, building management work was rather straightforward, but now the post holder will have to deal with complicated building management issues. I'm not saying that the HYAB is not doing a good job. It's because it has to oversee youth affairs as well. For example, why not ask the Housing Bureau to undertake the relevant work? I think the HYAB is facing a very tough challenge because it has to already oversee a lot of work. If anything goes wrong, it is the Bureau to be blamed. Why not ask the administration to have a dedicated bureau, that is the Housing Bureau, deal with complicated building management related issues that cover building maintenance as well as all other relevant matters? Secretary, I thank Reverend Peter Kuhn for his support. Indeed, our colleagues are very dedicated. We rolled out a lot of building management related policies in the current term, and together with the district council, the district care team, we try to improve our work in building management. Of course, there are professional issues that we have to deal with in relation to building maintenance or construction works, but different bureaus work together. Under certain circumstances, we work with other bureaus. For example, on smart tender, that has to do with the URA. We rely on the Development Bureau and the URA to come up with measures to improve the tendering system so that we can offer advice to minority owners on a technical level. Should there be a different division of work under the existing structure or organization of the government, or should we absorb the workload within the HYAB? Well, regardless of which proposal we adopt, it shows that the current term government is determined to roll out reform. We already had a first round of reform, and now we're proposing to deepen the reform. I thank members for their valuable insights on how we can deepen the reform in our work on building management. In this regard, we're willing to work with different sectors of society as well as different departments and bureaus to strengthen our work. Any follow-up? Reverend Peter Kuhn? No? Next, Mr. Jonathan Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I've been a district councillor for 6 to 8 years, and I've been offering a lot of support to owners' corporations on an intensive basis. After the fire incident, we see that if we do not close the loopholes, there will be a lot of issues. If we come up with very stringent rules, however, no one will want to offer support to the owners' corporations, so it is kind of a dilemma. I have two questions. The administration proposes converting the post into a permanent one. There were officers from the HAD that attend OC meetings, but they did not have a lot of power. But members of the public trusted them. In case there are disputes that happen in OC meetings, will staff or officers from the HAD be able to offer help? Also, on the legislative amendment proposal, we see that many OC members maliciously make use of the existing procedural rules to drive away those who genuinely want to attend OC meetings, will the administration consider rectifying the problem? Secretary, if you look at the design of the building management ordinance, well, buildings are private assets and properties of owners, so we've been respecting the autonomy of owners. So the building management ordinance was designed in a way that allows owners to adopt their own means to make procurement and carry out their meetings. In the past, the HAD played a supportive role, but now people have higher expectations on us, so we do hope to offer more advice at OC's meetings. But under the existing laws, there is limited power given to the authority. For example, in relation to meeting procedures, when can chairman suspend or cancel a meeting, these are not spelled out clearly in the existing legislation. There are often disputes at OC meetings, and meetings can run until 12 a.m. in the midnight, and some members decide to leave and others decide to stay. But some owners have to go to work the next morning. They could not stay in the meeting, so they suggest the chairman to suspend the meeting, but the relevant procedures are not spelled out in the existing laws. They might ask the HAD whether the meeting could be suspended, but the HAD could not make a decision because we do not have the we do not have the relevant powers under the existing legislation. Now we try to close the loophole by amending the ordinance to make the meeting procedures clearer so that the HAD officers who attend the OC meetings can better explain to OC members about the relevant rules. We also encourage owners not to bring up the disputes during the meeting because we offer a series of advisory services as well as mediation services. As we deepen the reform, we hope that owners, when dealing with procurement issues as well as building maintenance projects, they could, as early as possible through mediation or our briefing sessions, deal with anything that they are not clear about. I thank the Secretary for the explanation, but just now Mr. Jonathan Leung gave a very specific scenario because he said the 5% threshold might be abused. Yes, you may explain later. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. The typo fire exposed the loopholes of our building management regime, so I agree that we should amend CAP 344, that is the Building Management Ordinance. I also agree that the HAD should convert the time-limited supernumerary post into a permanent one. I have a question about proxy votes. In the past, syndicates that engage in bid rigging, they used unlawful means to collect proxy votes from minority owners so that they can win the contract. Now that there is a cap proposed on the number of proxy instruments for a building with a total number of units of 50, the number of proxy instruments signed by owners that a person may obtain shall not exceed 2% of the total number of owners, or 20 instruments. Will the administration consider restricting the people who can get the proxy votes? For example, only lawyers or relatives of minority owners can get the proxy votes to prevent any unscrupulous people from collecting proxy votes from owners? Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Lau offered a very good suggestion. During our consultation, we heard different views. Under the current legislation, there's no cap on the number of proxy votes a person may hold. But how should we define the word person under the existing legislation? That person does not have to be an owner, and that person does not even have to be related to the owner in any ways. It could be a stranger. Like the member said, could it be the lawyer of the owner? Yes, it could be under the existing legislation. Also, there are views that the person who get the proxy vote should meet certain requirements. For example, that person has to be a relative or family member of the owner, or a professional engaged by the owner, or other owners of the same housing estate or same building. In this regard, we are happy to take into consideration the public's views. As mentioned by some members, some syndicates, they collect proxy votes from owners through unlawful means. However, some may be of the view that if we impose certain restrictions, we might limit the participation of different kinds of people who are allowed to attend OC meetings. As to how we should implement the proposal in the end, we are happy to listen to the public's views. We'll also consult the property management sector as well as members of different owners' corporations. This is a very important piece of opinion for us, because who can get the proxy vote may have to do with whether the proxy instrument system would be abused. If we amend the ordinance, we might, however, pose inconvenience to owners. So we have to strike a balance between the two. We have to make sure that there is good regulation, and at the same time we have to make sure that there is participation from owners, and that owners will not feel troubled if they want to attend the meetings. So we are happy to listen to members' views, and we hoped to have members' comments and suggestions during our consultation exercise. Next, Mr. Vincent Chang. Thank you. We hope that OCs could be representative of owners, and at the same time we understand that any legislative amendments may pose difficulties to owners. I am particularly concerned about the work of the assistant director. Let's say we approve the conversion of the post into a permanent one. Apart from the 40 staff, 40 strong establishment, will you make sure that you will give more duties or responsibilities to frontline officers so they are more familiar with the building management regime, or will you allocate more resources to other divisions so that the HAD won't be under so much pressure? What is the direction that you will take? Also, I remember that after the Lucky House fire 2 years ago, there was a discussion among the Housing Department, the Fire Services Department, and the URA. There was a suggestion that there should be regular communication among these parties to follow up on reform of the building management regime. Will the Assistant Director work more closely with the Housing Department and the Fire Services Department in this regard? Secretary. Just now, Mr. Chang asked about how we will allocate our resources. If we get the support from the public as well as members, we do want to allocate more resources on our work on building management, because this is top of mind of members of the public. At the same time, we have to make sure that we make use of our resources effectively. We're proposing to convert the post into a permanent one, and as mentioned, under the premise that we make good use of our resources, we will have a dedicated division under the HAD to help the Assistant Director take forward her work in building management. For example, we offer advisory services. We also have the JPM pilot scheme. The JPM pilot scheme was called for by a lot of members, and 2 years ago we announced the scheme in the policy address, and last year we implemented the scheme, and so far 6 buildings have participated in the JPM scheme. We hope that we will carry on with the JPM scheme and that we can extend it to all 18 districts in Hong Kong, so the Assistant Director in future will be responsible for this. The AD will help improve the building management work of 3 news buildings too. Also, there will be a dedicated division for this, and so our colleagues and officers will get more training in this regard, and their day-to-day work will focus more on building management in the future, so that they can offer more support to buildings in greater depth. Of course, there are also other offices that take part in OC's work. For example, there is already a mechanism in place. Under the HYAB, for example, there is an internal high-level task force, and every week we convene meeting under the task force. And this mechanism in place allows us to follow up on any complicated issues that have to do with building management. And all these are discussed in our high-level task force. Also, in relation to our work with the Housing Department, the FSD, as well as the Development Bureau, we have again regular meetings with these different parties, and in the future we will step up our communication with different stakeholders, including government departments as well as public organizations, to improve building management. Thank you.
Mr. Adrian Ho, Deputy Chair. Thank you. I'd like to ask 3 questions. As for the voting in person threshold, that is 5% or 100 property owners to cast their votes. I'd like to ask the government whether you have assessed the possible implementation of this threshold. Is it easy to meet this threshold? In case there are difficulties, how can the administration help to resolve these problems? As for some independent buildings, because of issues of DMC, they cannot form their own OCs. So what can we do in order to enhance the transparency of management to help these house-based estates? As for the mandatory maintenance reserve fund, is there any timetable? What are the factors that you will take into account? Thank you. As for the voting in person threshold, that is either 5% of the owners or 100 property owners. If the property owners need to pay 30,000 for the maintenance works, then there will be this voting in person threshold. That is either 5% of the owners or 100 owners. And we'll see if we need to further increase the voting in person threshold. If the amount is over $30,000, do we need to increase the threshold? That's why we need to have discussions in the community. After we have listened to members, we will consult the industry and we will also consult owners' cooperation. We need to think whether we can implement this in implementation. If we need to further increase the threshold, how can we implement this? Or we need to ask the OCs for the voting in person threshold in practice. Is it easy to meet when they hold meetings? If so, then we are confident that we can further increase the threshold. Like members, we will consider the feasibility of increasing the threshold further. We need to make sure it can be implemented. Regarding the house-based estates, there is no common parts. If they do not have a common part, then they do not need to have an OC. There could be other organizations such as those of residents or those of owners. This is how they can take part in the management of their own building. Or they can use the mediation of building management. Some retired judges help with mediation on this front. When an organization is set up and when disputes cannot be resolved, they can make good use of mediation to put their heads together so that they can handle the management of the building or their own estate in a rational manner. Just now we talked about the mandatory maintenance reserve fund. We are willing to listen to members to see if we need to map out the future this way, as this will increase the financial burden of property owners. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth FOK. Thank you, Secretary. We did talk about the creation of this position. I express my full support to this creation of the post. We need to ensure that the amendment will be practical. In fact, there was a blaze and there were also bid riggings. Are the policies good enough? Will the policies be toothless tiger? As for page 7 of the document, well, some important roles are not included, such as Treasury Secretary, consultant. Are they subject to regulation? Well, if there is nothing to hide, it is normal to have disclosure. What are the requirements for disclosure? Next, I'd like to ask about deterrent effect. What is the government's view on deterrent effect? Is it strict enough? Especially when it comes to false declaration, as Mr. Chrissy mentioned, can we install CCTVs? What about the failure to declare interest? What are the penalties? Will you even consider criminalizing these acts? Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, we need to strike a balance. We cannot scare away people who really want to engage in the management of their own buildings. We cannot let people with ulterior motive join the management of the building. This is exactly what we do not want to see. It is not easy to strike a balance, but I thank members for providing their views. As for the legislative amendments that were implemented in 2025, it was the first time we used this mechanism. All the members of the management committee, as well as all management companies, will ensure all those that have a part in the tendering practice or purchase or procurement will have to declare their own interests. Not just treasury or secretary. We need to have them declare their interest between the contractors and the consultant. If they fail to disclose their interest, we will have to ask why. The deterrence effect is also a major concern. If someone falsely declares an interest or makes false declaration, then this person will be held criminally liable. An application will have to be made with the Lands Tribunal to avoid the agreement. We need to strike a balance. Probably they would say that they don't know what their children have. That's why they miss out on some declaration. We welcome members' and views. We are open to discussion. Next, Ms. Michelle Tang. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. In relation to the conversion of the time-limited supernumerary post to a permanent one, I understand how complicated it is to handle building management matters. In fact, the Taipei Hon Kenneth fire has exposed these problems. I believe that the administration should provide more assistance. This shows the members of the public have faith in the government's work. That's why they have this call. Am I coming through? Am I coming through? Thank you. Yes, that's why I support it. Just now, some members refer to proxy instruments, and I'm not going to repeat these points. But I'd like to emphasize we need to enhance transparency. Property owners need to know whether they have their proxy instruments granted to somebody else. Sometimes OCs do not know what they can do. Many members of the public want to join the meetings, but they aren't sure about the procedures. That's why I think we need to mount publicity. We need to let members of the public know what they can do. Just now you touched upon a lot of mediation services as well as other services. Not all members of the public are aware of these services. That's why you need to work more on this front. Some management companies are quite cunning. Members of the public need to guard against their trickery. But the PMSA needs to do more on this front. Thank you, Secretary. I agree we need to enhance our public education. That's why we need to let property owners know more about the buildings management ordinance, including procurement, meeting procedures, maintenance works, and so on. That's why we need to set up working groups on building management under the 18 district councils in Hong Kong. They know the most about their own districts. And the district councillors are the ones who are the most familiar with the matters in the districts. Then they can organize workshops, seminars, training sessions, and they can also enhance publicity. Then property owners will know more about these. That's why we think alike. Just now we talked about the property management companies as well. When we convert this supernumerary post to a permanent one, this position holder will have to liaise with the PMSA. They need to work together. They need to ensure they are of the same wavelength. This is exactly how they can enhance the work of the management company. Mr. Ken Wong, thank you. It is good to know that the administration meets the pressing needs of the public. I'm glad to see the proposed legislative amendments to Cap 344. Indeed, these amendments can help us address the issue of people with ulterior motive. Of course, we don't want people who really want to take part in the management of buildings to be driven away. Just now, 10 colleagues referred to many issues, and I have to emphasize public education, regulation, penalties. These need to be clear. Regarding the future work of building management, I understand the administration will have a lot to do. That's why to convert a time-limited supernumerary post to a permanent one, I support it. This new position will be supported by 40 non-directorate officers, including 28 permanent civil service posts and 12 non-civil service contract posts. What are the requirements to extend the contract or to renew the contract? With the further expansion of the JPM scheme, will there be more support staff to be added?
Secretary, just now the member asked how we're going to educate the public. As mentioned, there are two types of people. On one hand, we have owners who are very genuine in taking forward building management work. So when we amend the ordinance, we have to take into consideration these genuine owners. That is whether we can help them better manage their buildings. Also, there are people with ulterior motives. We have to combat these people. So I thank the member for the suggestions. We have to strike a careful balance between the two, and at the same time we have to make sure that we take forward the publicity work and the education work so that those who are genuine in taking forward the building management work have the knowledge to do so. In relation to staff establishment, the JPM pilot scheme is a new initiative under the current term government. It was announced in the policy address. It is a new measure and a new area of work for us. Over the years, members of the public have been saying that we need to offer help to owners of 3 new buildings to enhance their building management work. We can do this through the JPM pilot scheme, and we have taken on board people's suggestions, and that's why we rolled out the JPM scheme. We've been making use of existing resources to implement the JPM scheme. In the future, with the permanent directorate post as well as a dedicated division under our bureau, our offices will focus on this part of our work. As to whether we will allocate additional resources and staff to take forward the JPM scheme, well, if the scheme is proven to be effective and if we manage to extend the scheme to different districts based on the actual circumstances as well as our staffing situation, we will deploy more manpower to work on this scheme. Thank you. Next, Mr. Webster. I declare that I am a member of the Competition Commission. I'm also a dispute resolution group member of the HAD. I have 4 questions. If this amendment proposal is passed in relation to large-scale maintenance works, according to the paper, there needs to be declaration of interests. Those companies that have to declare interests may be accounting firms. Very often, what accounting firms have to do could be very complicated. Will there be a third-party monitoring or oversight system? It might be very late if we only realize how the accounting firms or other parties are related. So will there be a mechanism to deal with it? As for the 5% attendance or threshold, well, there could be buildings with varying number of units. Will you consider lowering the threshold to make sure that buildings with a smaller number of units, they could hold OC meetings more easily? Same for buildings with a higher number of units. Third question, for people with ulterior motives, they would make use of the 5% threshold to convene meetings repeatedly. I see that you are proposing an appeal mechanism, say, for agenda items or issues that are very similar in nature. Will the PMSA step in to make sure that repeated items won't be brought up in different OC meetings? Also, according to the paper, You will require the public to display within the building a list of units whose owners have signed proxy instruments. Well, you could consider making use of technology. For example, people with ulterior motives, they may know which owners would not attend meetings and they may photocopy the proxy votes. So how could you prevent such situations from happening? Secretary, I thank Mr. Webster for the questions. You are giving me an opportunity to respond to the question raised by Mr. Jonathan Leung too. The first question concerned whether the 5% threshold should be based on the number of units of a building. Of course, this is open to discussion, but it looks like the general consensus is that we need a 5% attendance or threshold. As to whether this should be adjusted based on the number of units of a building, again, as I said, this is open to discussion, because this is doable. As for the questions about how we can prevent the same items being brought up in repeated meetings within 2 or 3 months' time, that is, those with ulterior motives, they make use of the 5% threshold to convene meetings to discuss similar items. Well, every time you convene a meeting, you have to go through certain procedures. And if there are repeated meetings over and over again, you may dampen the enthusiasm of owners with a genuine heart to manage building issues. So how can we restrict the number of meetings convened by OC, or how can we prevent similar items being brought up in meetings over and over again? Can they make use of the appeal mechanism? I think we can consider this. As for the requirement of asking OCs to display the list of units whose owners have signed proxy instruments, we will look into this. Next, Mr. Mark Chong. Well, a lot of people blame the proxy vote system on building management issues. I don't agree. I think proxy votes is a very useful tool that help us ensure an effective building management practice. The problem lies in distributing proxy votes randomly to people. I think if we hold a briefing session 7 days prior to an OC meeting, you can at least allow owners to learn about what will be discussed in the meeting. According to the proposal made by the administration, you can allow owners to voluntarily specify their voting instructions to their proxies. Why should it be done on a voluntary basis but not on a mandatory basis? Also, should proxy votes be signed during the briefing sessions so that the property management companies can witness the signing of the proxy votes, so that the proxy votes won't be given to unscrupulous parties. Also, I suggest that phone calls be made to authorized owners. And last time, Secretary said you don't have the phone numbers of all owners. In fact, you don't need the phone numbers of all owners. As long as you have the phone number of the authorized party, then you can find the owner, right? You can have this dedicated session on the form to make sure that you can get hold of the owner. Also, the last slide of the PowerPoint presentation said that for buildings with over 50 units, you need at least 2% of the total number of owners to obtain the proxy vote. Do you mean 2% of the owner's title or 2% of the number of units? Secretary, yes, according to our new requirement, there will be a briefing session prior to the OC meeting. This will allow owners to be more familiar with the information concerning the building maintenance project. As to whether we should allow owners to sign proxy votes during the briefing session, well, this could be challenging. For example, some owners may not be in Hong Kong and they may not be able to attend the OC meeting for certain reasons. And For the same reasons, they may not be able to attend the briefing session too. So if you ask owners to sign the proxy vote during the briefing session, it could be quite challenging for some owners. I understand where the member is coming from. It is in line with the suggestions made by other members. Members are all concerned about how we can verify the authenticity of the proxy vote. Mr. Mark Chong said the HAD should be responsible for verifying the authenticity of the proxy vote. Also, where feasible, perhaps the property management company concerned should be responsible for that because the company already has the information of all owners. Under some circumstances, the OC might engage a third party to verify the authenticity of the proxy votes. Well, I think all these suggestions show that we all want a mechanism in place to make sure that we can effectively verify the authenticity of the proxy instruments. When we have a discussion with the property management sector, we will ask the property management sector to help their OCs to better manage the proxy votes and verify the proxy votes. And the 2% that we referred to is 2% of the total number of units. Well, according to the paper, it's 2% of the total number of owners. Well, for proxy votes, we are talking about 2% of the number of units of the buildings. Next, Ms. Maggie Chen. First, I agree that we need a permanent post for the assistant director. Also, I agree that there should be a cap on the number of proxy instruments a person may hold because then we can prevent situations where people group together to collect proxy votes. Also, there is a good suggestion made by the administration, that is, there need to be declaration of interests. I think those who are given the authority to cast a vote should declare interest too. That is, they will have to, or they should have to declare whether they are in any way affiliated with the parties that will undertake the building maintenance work. You can regulate what owners do, but at the same time, you also have to regulate those who get the proxy vote, and that way we can prevent anyone with ulterior motive to control the building maintenance work. Also, in relation to declaration of interest, under Cap 344, Section 44(1)(b), in relation to the Code of Conduct, I think we need to specify the procedures for declarations of interest. Also, under Cap 344, in relation to protection for management committee, that is Section 29A, it says that if the management company genuinely take forward a work, it should be exempted from any liability. However, many management committee members are not sure about what it means by genuine or reasonable. How can the administration prevent those with ulterior motive to control a project, and how can we ensure those who are genuine to be exempted from the liability? The administration said it has issued a code of conduct, but the code of conduct does not stress on the importance of declaration of interests and how the declaration should be made. I think if all these can be specified, that would be in line with Section 29A in relation to how we can protect management committee, and that way we'll be able to protect the interests of those who genuinely work for the OCs.
Ms. Mack, thank you. We agree with Ms. Maggie Chan regarding power of attorneys. Yes, we need to enhance protection for both parties. regarding for those acting in good faith in a reasonable manner. They should not be held personally liable. This was actually floated by members because they wanted to protect property owners. In the past, all members of MC needed to be penalized, but then we have this clause. We take into account who is the person in charge. We don't penalize everyone. In other words, the protection for property owners has been enhanced. We welcome members' views. We welcome professional suggestions by members. Thank you, Ms. Kwok Foo-yong. Thank you. We have the proposals on deepening the reform of building management, and we can see the resolve of the administration. I appreciate this, and I support you. In the past decade or so, as a district councillor, I indeed have a lot of members of the public. I provided assistance to owners' corporation. It is not easy at all for property owners to join the management of the building. We need to know how to deal with people with ulterior motive. Sometimes property owners may lack the related knowledge, and this is actually common in single block buildings. They are willing to devote their personal time to the management of the building, but they lack the professional know-how. Regarding the amendments to the BMO Cap 344, the failure to keep all tender documents may criminalize someone. This has driven away many people who do want to serve the management committee, and after all, it is about support. Some property owners told us it is not the case that they do not want to conduct large-scale building maintenance, but then they do not have the financial means. Some members of the public told us, is it possible to have a default works mechanism by the administration, by the URA, when there are sufficient votes cast by property owners, then professionals can be appointed to handle this. Will this expedite the process? Will this make the process more professional? Will this give property owners peace of mind? Will you consider devoting resources to the default mechanism so that we can help property owners to handle matters in relation to building management? Just now, the Secretary talked about one of the responsibilities of the permanent post holder. That is, they need to enhance liaison with property management companies. Are there any detailed KPIs, timetables, so that we will have a better idea of the support given to property management companies? Thank you. In our last round of amendments, if owners' corporation do not keep tender documents, then they will be held criminally liable. That's why we have incorporated a clause. It is only the person who is responsible for keeping the tender documents that will be held criminally liable. It is not the case that everyone will be held liable. Members, please clarify this for us so that property owners will not fear this. The URA and the Development Bureau are looking into this through the enhanced version of Smart Tender. It is hoped that we can provide more professional knowledge and support to owners. With the enhanced version of Smart Tender, we will make relevant amendments to the BMO in relation to large-scale maintenance works and procurement works, so that we can cover this in the enhanced Smart Tender. Thank you, Ms. Christine Fong. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Secretary. I welcome the proposals on deepening the reform of building management. The administration shows the resolve. I agree that we need to handle the amendments to the building management ordinance. On converting one-time limited supernumerary post to a permanent one, more support needs to be given to property owners to solve their problems. Some residents suspect collusion between owners' corporation and property management companies. So in the document, it is said that it is not possible to cancel proxy votes across the board. In cases where property owners are seniors, then we do need proxy instruments. The document referred to 5%. 2% of the total number of owners or 20 instruments. I believe this will make it even more difficult to manipulate proxy instruments, but we need to strike a balance. We need to make sure residents will be able to call a meeting, and this is worth our concern. The administration talked about appointing the PMSA to assume the role to check the veracity of the proxy votes. For the bogus proxy votes, I believe they need to be checked at the time of submission. The identity cards need to be checked. The relevant phone number also needs to be checked. We need to check the source of the proxy votes. This is better than the collective collection of votes. In the past, we couldn't track down the bogus proxy instruments. And I believe the administration needs to promote regular management and maintenance of the buildings. This is better than large-scale maintenance projects. We need to implement day-to-day maintenance projects. That's why we need to add these guidelines in the code of practice. Regarding fake proxies, as I mentioned, we are willing to explore different proposals. We also welcome members' concrete proposals. We will discuss with the property management sector. We will see how the PMC can help owners' corporation with verification of the proxy votes. Just now, member referred to the PMSA. After our legislative amendments to the Building Management Ordinance, the PMSA will issue codes of practice or guidelines. These will be circulated among property management companies. Thank you. Mr. FOK Kai-kong. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the conversion of one supernumerary post to a permanent one, I support it. And regarding the introduction of voting in person threshold in large-scale maintenance works and high-value procurement, I support it as well. But I hope that the government will come up with different proposals taking into account the scale of different housing estates. For larger housing estates, the voting in person threshold needs to be higher. There should also be exemption mechanisms subject to the fulfillment of professional assessments. The voting in person threshold needs to be relaxed in order to make it more convenient to conduct emergency building maintenance works. At present, there is no template for there are actually templates for complaints. We need to enhance promotion, publicity, so that practitioners will comply with the codes of practice. Regarding fake proxies, as many members have mentioned, we need to work more on the front of verification. We also need to consider increasing the level of penalty. This way, we can enhance the deterrence effect. Some property owners aren't very proactive in the work of building management. With the work between property management companies and owner corporations, we need to let property owners know their interests and rights as well as their obligation. We cannot resolve this issue just by legislation. Every time, the HAD sends staff members to owners corporation meetings to help resolve issues. Can the HAD send staff members with property management or building management experience so that they can provide their own views and their experience to owners? Thank you. Well, we have the voting in person threshold for necessary maintenance works or for maintenance works involving structural safety. Do we still need the voting in person threshold? Will this requirement hinder the conduct of the construction works? We will pay heed to society and we will also listen to members. Regarding the proxy votes, that is, we need to allow owners to voluntarily specify their voting instructions to their proxies. Some people will cast in favor of the resolution, whereas some will vote against. That's why in some housing estates we use technologies. In some housing estates, this may not be implemented. That's why Mr. Andrew Lam talks about using technologies. Yes, this is necessary. When we use technologies, we can mandate owners to specify their voting instructions. Thank you. A total of 17 members have spoken. They have provided their own opinions. We discussed a wide range of issues. The Secretary answered all these questions. We can see that the Secretary is in tune with the community. She is well up in the situation in the community. So I'd like to ask members, do we support the government's proposals? Yes? Well, Chairman, can I take half a minute to answer a member's question? Thank you. Regarding the declaration of a company such as contractors, this is exactly what I said. We need interdepartmental collaboration. When we have the enhanced version of the smart tender in the future on the list, a screening will be done in advance. Then we can help property owners to do this. The enhanced version of the smart tender can have some information about the background of the company. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes this agenda item. Moving on to the next one, promotion of youth internship and exchange outside Hong Kong. First of all, I'd like to ask members who'd like to ask questions to press the request to speak button. Thank you.
位
11 members have asked to speak. And the Secretary will lead the team for this discussion item. If I give each member 3 minutes, we will overrun. So I will have to seek members' views. If you agree, I will extend this meeting by 15 minutes. And the Secretary, please walk us through the paper first. Afterwards, I'll draw the line. Good afternoon, Chair and members. I, together with colleagues from the Education Bureau, are here today to report to members on the various exchange as well as internship activities held by the government outside Hong Kong. As you all know, in late 2022, we promulgated the Youth Development Bureau blueprint. Since then, different departments as well as bureaus have been taking forward various measures to support youth development. Our vision is to make sure that young people have a better understanding of the global trends as well as our country. We want them to broaden their friend circle and expand their personal network so that they can build a solid foundation for themselves to achieve what they want. And we have provided 220,000 exchange quotas as well as over 1,000 internship placements covering different provinces and municipalities of our country as well as different countries, including those along the Belt and Road. In 2017, we allocated $100 million to roll out the HYAB funding scheme for international youth exchange. This funding scheme has become more and more popular among young people as well as different sectors of the community. Since 2017 to 2018, we have increased the number of quotas from 33 to 95, and the number of beneficiaries have increased from 900 to about 2,500 people. The funding is nearly exhausted, and with members' approval, we hope to inject an additional $60 million into this international youth exchange funding scheme. As mentioned, we seek members' support for the allocation of additional funding. We're happy to take members' questions now. Do any other members wish to speak? If not, I will draw a line here. 11 members have pressed the request to speak button. I'll read out the lineup quickly. Mr. Ken Wong, Mr. Lau Shipang, Mr. Kenneth FOK, Mr. Brave Chen, Ms. Nixie Lam, Mr. Adrian Ho, Ms. Rebecca Chen, Mr. Lau Kai-kong, Dr. Alvin Lee, Ms. Michelle Tang, and Mr. Albert Chuang. In the interest of time, I can only give each member 3 minutes, including questions and answers. Please specify whether you support the $60 million funding proposal. Yes, Mr. Ken Wong. I support the $60 million proposal. I have 2 questions for the Undersecretary. Paragraph 12. Well, I mean paragraph 6 of the paper states that there are 6 programs under the HYAB. Does the administration plan to roll out more thematic internship programs covering digital education as well as environmental protection and technology? If you have this plan, and how can you ensure that these programs can dovetail with the national strategies? And will there be a tracking mechanism to gauge the effectiveness of the programs? Undersecretary, I thank Mr. Ken Wong for the questions. I also thank Mr. Wong for his support in the $60 million proposal. In relation to our mainland study programs, well, there are different mainland study programs, and just now Mr. Wong mentioned about the thematic programs. Under these programs, and we match young people's interests with the internship opportunities available in our country. Our goal is that through the thematic programs, we can enable young people in Hong Kong to have a better understanding of our country in areas concerning, for example, biodiversity, arts and culture, history, as well as inheritance of Chinese culture through a 3-week to 6-week long programs. Our young people can have a better understanding of the development of our country, and they can also learn more about their interests. Just now, Mr. Ken Wong asked whether there would be more thematic programs covering areas such as digital economy. We will continue to pay attention to the trend. For example, in the 2025 policy address, we mentioned that we will introduce a media thematic internship program. So we will work on this. Also, we have the HYAB funding scheme for youth internship in the mainland. We see that in recent years, more community groups as well as organizations are applying for funding under the scheme, and they have come up with different special themes, and that covers online marketing as well as Chinese medicine. All these are covered under the internship schemes. I believe all these projects can attract young people to apply for the internship programs. Next, Mr. Lau Shepang. I speak in support of the $60 million proposal, but I'm afraid that $60 million are not enough. If you do the math here, each participating youth spends $15,000 of your expenditure. I think this is worth it. My question is, the subsidized organizations, do they have to go through any procedures before they implement the program? We're not talking about a random trip. We're talking about internship programs as well as study tours. That is, the organizations in charge, they will have to be familiar with the visiting spots and destinations. Well, $15,000 is not a small sum. Can the students who participated in the programs share their experience with others after the completion of the programs? Also, for those who are asking for funding, you have to make sure that they perform well. Do you ask them to submit a report every year? Undersecretary, I thank Professor Lau for the 2 questions. The first question is about asking participants to share the experience, and the second question has to do with the effectiveness of the programs. I'll give a consolidated response. We give funding to NGOs to organize different programs. These NGOs, they bring young people onto different international exchange trips, and this has to do with the preparation for the study tours as well as the follow-up work after the completion of the projects. We also ask young people to share their experiences. For example, after each program, there is a sharing session, and the participants have to share with each other what they have learned from the programs. We also invite members of the Youth Development Commission to identify programs that are worth our studying, and we take part in the sharing sessions of those programs. Also, we notice that a lot of young people make use of social media to share what they have learned. They also produce videos to do so. Professor Lau has a point. An important element of these study programs is that there is a theme. Young people who take part in these programs, they learned about the consulate of our country as well as the development of our country, and they also exchange with the local young people during the study program. Perhaps I'll elaborate later. Mr. Kenneth FOK, I have 3 points to make. First, I support the $60 million proposal. I hope the administration will focus on the quality instead of the quantity, however. At the very beginning, without the support of the government, there were large enterprises that subsidized or funded this kind of study programs. This is not to make profit. It is because they want to identify outstanding young people for their management trainee programs. So this is a very good way for them to recruit elites. So I want to know, for programs that are funded by the government, after the conclusion of these programs, will you invite large-scale enterprises or corporates to learn more about the outstanding young people that took part in the programs? Can there be such practice? I know that a lot of NGOs hold sharing sessions after the programs, but that's the end. I hope the government can do more after the completion of the programs. Also, we need young people who have international perspectives. I appreciate the UN internship program. We need to nurture a new generation of young people who can have an impact in the international community. Can young people be asked to work at the ETOs with unilateralism? Can we work more closely with international organizations? There are international organizations in the areas of culture, sports, as well as business and commerce. Can we strike for more such internship programs from international organizations to give more opportunities to our young people? Undersecretary, Mr. Kenneth FOK mentioned 3 points. First, of course, we focus on the quality as well as the quantity. For each exchange and internship program, we look at whether the proposal is good and also how the program is implemented. I actually wanted to respond to Professor Lau's question. To respond to his question about how we gauge the effectiveness of the program, each participant is asked to fill out a questionnaire. To give you an idea, for those who take part in international exchange trips, their satisfactory rate is 99%. For those who took part in the exchange activities, their satisfactory rate is 95%. That is for those who took part in the mainland study tours. So I think they're quite satisfied with the programs and study tours. Also, every year there is the corporate internship program, and under this corporate summer internship program, we invite large-scale enterprises and corporates to recruit young people to take up their internship placements, and there are more and more such internship placements being offered to our young people. We believe that this year there will be about 400 internship placements that can be offered to our young people, and these are provided by mainland as well as overseas large-scale enterprises and corporates. As for the question about the UN volunteer internship program, as announced in the 2025 policy address, we will give more opportunities to the young people in Hong Kong to take part in international conferences as well as the work of international organizations.
Mr. Brave Chan, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clarence Lau. I support the provision, and I'd like to ask what else we can enhance. CEDB, CSTB in the Security Bureau. Can we have a centralized data bank or database such as the IM Smart platform so that we can provide matching services? We can help participants to not sign up for multiple programs at the same time. We need to reduce duplication of resources. And I'd like to ask about a program for the Grassroots Youth Subsidy Pilot Scheme. What is the definition? What is the ratio? They come from a humble background. That's why they will treasure these schemes even more. Undersecretary, thank you, Mr. Brave Chan, for your questions and views. Regarding enhancements, we always strive for enhancements. We are glad to see teenagers sign up for the internship schemes in the mainland as well as those going to other international countries. Regarding internship schemes, some teenagers have already signed up for one particular scheme. They may think where to go in the summer vacation. They have applied to 2 enterprises and they may sign up for another at the same time. And in the end, they will have choices. Of course, we respect their decisions. Now, different organizations attract teenagers to stay. Just now, Mr. Brave Chan talked about the Grassroots Youth Subsidy Pilot Scheme. 2 years ago, we started to prepare for this scheme. The funding scheme for international youth exchange and the funding scheme for youth internship in the mainland, about 10 to 13%. This is the figure we have. The eligibility criteria are straightforward as long as they receive CSSA or receive textbook allowances, then they are already eligible to sign up for this program. We appeal to more organizations to provide different programs to attract grassroots families so that the children can take part in these schemes. Thank you, Ms. Nixie Lam. Well, I have to press the button faster. My questions have already been asked by other members. I'd like to ask about one pilot scheme. Do we have even more ways to allow more young people to enjoy these schemes? How can they be given equal opportunities to sign up for these programs? Under the UGC, there's a learning target of having 50% of students who have international study tour experience. How can we broaden the horizons? And I'd like to ask about the internship scheme. Regarding the United Nations volunteer internship programs, a lot of countries along the Belt and Road Initiative are covered. So I'd like to know what methods we have to track the participants. Have they benefited from the program when it comes to their personal development and career development? Do we have any figures to draw reference from after they have joined the programs? Well, do they want to change their careers? Do we have such figures? Thank you, Ms. Lam, for your 3 questions. For one of the questions, I'd like to ask the Education Bureau to respond. As for the Grassroots Youth Subsidy Pilot Scheme, we made efforts and launched this internship pilot scheme. We want more young people in Hong Kong to understand more about the Grassroots Youth Subsidy Pilot Scheme. Where teenagers need to pay a cost, we welcome non-government organizations to provide assistance. For those who joined the HYAB UN Volunteer Internship Program, they have experienced significant changes owing to the long duration of the program. Some young people were even invited by the UN. Regarding figures on the Youth Link, we will provide answers to members later on. May I ask the Education Bureau to respond? Thank you. We have 3 schemes to subsidize students to take part in overseas schemes. We have different schemes to subsidize higher education students to join different study tours, such as a scheme for subsidy on exchange for post-secondary students, as well as scheme for subsidy on exchange to Belt and Road regions for post-secondary students. Mr. Adrian Ho, I'd like to ask the Undersecretary. I'd like to ask the distribution of resources. Do you accord priority to Belt and Road Initiative countries or grassroots? Well, I understand many young people are satisfied with the programs. Do you keep contacting these young people? Do you have figures on their careers, further education, their performance in the workplace? I'd like to know the impact of the programs on their personal development. I want to see figures so that we can enhance the programs further. Undersecretary, thank you. Today we want the support of members. Well, that is, we are asking for $60 million more. On the use of resources, we will subsidize NGOs to organize international study tours or exchange tours so that eligible young people, that is those aged between 12 and 35, can take part in the schemes to broaden their horizons. We want them to keep their finger on the pulse of global developments. We also want young people to visit different consulates in general. We want young people in Hong Kong to be equipped with global perspectives. We hope that they will be able to see the contributions of our country to the world. We want to enhance the participation of grassroots young people in Hong Kong. We want them to have the opportunities to take part in different exchange tours. We want them to benefit from these tours. When young people join these schemes, they need to pay a small amount of fees. However, as long as they are eligible, at most they need to pay $3,000. The remainder of the fees will be subsidized by the scheme. Regarding any tracking studies, for example, for the thematic youth internship programs, we invite them to join the Youth Link. Through different activities, we continue to liaise with these young people so that we will understand what they need. We'll consider working on this front. Next, Ms. Rebecca Chan. I support the exchange tours and study tours of young people. Well, there's a large amount of information. There are many such programs, but I'm more concerned about quality. we need to set a quality target or quality indicator. I majored in communications, and I needed to take part in internship as well. There was a survey regarding what sector communication students join after graduation. We need an indicator to gauge the effectiveness of the programs. Can we target areas that Hong Kong needs talent in, for example, ICH or space race? We do not have such talent. We need to focus on the areas we need. We need to provide more targeted support. Some areas are only available outside Hong Kong. That's why we need to provide more targeted programs. We need to know what Hong Kong lacks. Thank you. Mr. Leung? Quality is very important. Through different opportunities, we talk to our participants. We work with the Youth Development Council or Commission. We want to know what young people have learned through these schemes. That's how we enhance these schemes. What about indicators of people staying in the same industry? We'll consider it. It is interesting to learn from Ms. Rebecca Chan that when you do not stay in one particular industry, it doesn't mean that the internship scheme is useless. Oftentimes I ask young participants, do you have the determination to continue to work in this industry? Well, 20 to 30% of the participants said that they actually might not continue to stay in that industry. We organize these internship schemes because we want young people to know more about the future development opportunities. We want these internship programs to help them choose the careers they want. We want to help young people to choose a career at least that they feel happy. We have a subsidy scheme. We have a framework. We accept applications from NGOs. Just now, I mentioned special themes like script writing, online marketing, and so on. These were proposed by different NGOs. We found the proposals good. That's why we organize those programs, and we will definitely continue to gauge the effectiveness. Thank you, Ms. Lau Kai-kong. In paragraph 23, the government provided young people with over 220,000 exchange places and over 7,000 placements and employment positions outside Hong Kong. This year marks the beginning of the 15th five-year plan of our nation. This has everything to do with Hong Kong. I hope that more 15th five-year plan elements can be added to our programs. In Beijing, the headquarters or the base of patriotism was set up in Beijing. I hope this base will be one of the attractions. It needs to be incorporated into the internship schemes. In paragraph 28 of the paper, in 2017, the funding scheme for international youth exchange, a total of 900 young people benefited from this scheme. Afterwards, the figure increased to 2,400. Three-fourths of the three-quarters of the places out of 40 in relation to Belt and Road countries. I hope two-way exchange programs will be rolled out. And I have to declare that I'm a chairperson of two mainland associations. Thank you.
或者意見啦，我好快咁樣。
Let me give a quick response to the 3 points raised by the member. First, on adding more elements that are in line with the National 15th Five-Year Plan into our exchange and internship programs, I agree. We have guidelines for organizations on how they should draft their proposals. So we guide NGOs on how they should organize the exchange and internship programs. Also, the member just now mentioned about the patriotic education base. I think it is important that we enable young people to learn more about the development of our country and that we can enhance their sense of national identity. About two-way exchanges, last year we started promoting two-way exchanges, and we see that there is an increase in terms of the number of applications for these programs. I want to stress that every year we hold the Youth Development Summit, and last year over 600 young people from the mainland as well as overseas took part in the summit upon our invitation. So there have been more and more such two-way exchanges. Next, Dr. Elvin Lee. First, I have to declare interest. The organization I work for bid for the contract for organizing the CS study tour. As mentioned by other members, we need to consider both quantity and quality, and we have to make sure that the administration make good use of the resources. According to the administration paper, there is a table on the exchange activities. I think we have to show to the public how different themes are covered under the exchange programs. Then you can show to people that these exchange programs can actually help with young people's development. Now I'd like to turn to young people from the grassroots. Those who take part in mainland programs, they have to pay $500, and those who opt for overseas programs, they have to pay $3,000. A lot of grassroots families cannot afford this fee. Can you further review the fees charged so that those with financial needs can also have sent their children to these programs? Now turning to risk management. There are different risks that students may face. For example, there are risks concerning qualification as well as insurance. Will there be a mechanism in place to make sure that you can better deal with any potential risks for this kind of programs? Undersecretary, I thank Dr. Elvin Lee for the questions as well as the comments. As for how we categorize the different exchange activities as well as internship programs, we adopted our own means to categorize the programs. I've noted members' comments. I will study how we can better categorize these exchange programs. We might not be able to have very small or detailed categories, but we will study how we can better group the programs into different categories. As mentioned, the grassroots program have been rolled out for 2 years. We will, where appropriate, review the grassroots program. How we make good use of our resources is one of our focuses. We have talked to the relevant NGOs as well as the young people who took part in the programs. They are quite happy with the current arrangement. They had to pay more to join the program, but now, with more subsidies, they give more positive feedback on the programs. Now, in relation to safety risks, every time we approve a program or a study tour, we issue guidelines to the operators, and we talk to the operators in relation to how they should deal with any potential risks. Indeed, many organizations that help to organize internship programs or exchange programs, they have to deal with situations where participants fall sick. And usually, these organizations get in touch with us immediately so that we can work together to deal with such emergency situations. Next, Ms. Michelle Tang. I thank the Undersecretary for the detailed explanation. I want to state that I support the funding proposal. Members are very concerned about the needs of grassroots families. But I want to know if students from international schools can also apply for these programs. Have you launched any publicity campaigns in international schools? I ask this question because many top talents have brought their children to Hong Kong and they study in international schools. Also, many middle-class families, they send their children to international schools as well. I think students studying in international schools should learn about the development of our country as well. This could inspire them to stay in Hong Kong or in the mainland for future development. Undersecretary, I thank Ms. Michelle Tang for the questions. Students from international schools are definitely eligible for these programs. Of course, it depends on how these international schools are established, but we welcome NGOs as well as community groups, including international schools, to apply for funding under these schemes. As to whether their programs will be approved, it depends on their proposals. As mentioned, we value both quality as well as quantity. The Youth Development Commission is responsible for approving the proposals, and we welcome any social organizations or community groups to apply for funding under the existing schemes. Any follow-up questions, Ms. Tang? No? Last member, Mr. Albert Chuang. I declare that I am a member of the YDC. I'm also a convener of an action group that concerns about national identity. I am a member of the YDC and I have applied for funding under these schemes many times, and these funding schemes have been very effective, so I support them. I think it is important for us to cultivate young people's international perspectives as well as holistic perspectives. So we have to keep up our effort and enhance international exchanges for young people. As mentioned by the Undersecretary, there is the HYAB scheme on corporate summer internship on the mainland and overseas. I've looked at the statistics. In relation to the number of participants, I see that the number of participants has been on the rise, and according to the Undersecretary, we might see a record high in terms of the number of participants. This shows that the HYAB has been working very hard and that we are seeing an improvement here. I have a suggestion for the administration. I see that most of the large-scale corporates that take part in this scheme come from mainstream industries. I hope that there will be more companies or enterprises or even startups that engage in the 8-center industries to take part in this scheme so that more young people could be attracted to take part in the program. Undersecretary, I thank Mr. Albert Chuang for the suggestion as well as the questions. Mr. Albert Chuang has been a solid partner working with us under the Youth Development Commission, and he has offered a lot of suggestions on how we should organize the exchange programs. In relation to the HYAB scheme on corporate summer internship on the mainland and overseas, we will continue to work hard. As mentioned, we are seeing a record high every year after COVID. in terms of the number of participating enterprises as well as the number of internship placements offered by the enterprises. As to whether there are any companies that engage in non-traditional industries that take part in this program, we see that there are fintech companies including Tencent, as well as the Ant Group. Well, I hope that in future we'll be able to identify enterprises that engage in digital economy to take part in the program. But we do see non-traditional industry players such as Lalamove, as well as a wine company that have taken part in the internship program. Well, here we are concluding this item. Before we conclude this meeting, I would like to remind members that this item will not be submitted to the Finance Committee because this will be incorporated under the Appropriation Bill. I ask members again whether you support the proposal. We all agree? Okay. Any further business? This panel on the 24th of February will visit the Kai-tak Sports Park. The coach will leave at 9 a.m. from the electrical complex. If you return to the electrical complex by taking the coach will return at 11 a.m. We need at least half of the number of panel members to join this tour in order for us to allow other panel members to sign up for this tour. Do members agree with this arrangement? I hope that you can all participate because we need at least half of you to join the tour in order for this to be held. There being no further matters, meeting adjourned. Thank you.